50 years ago today, 50 to the day, what were you doing? A lot of people in this room were getting ready to play a football game because 50 years ago today, on this day, Friday the 13th, 1963, final score, Dalhart 42, Guyman 14. Yeah. 1963, the greatest season of all time, 13 straight wins, number one AA ranking in the state of Texas, district champions, by-districts, regional, quarterfinal champions. Then on a cold and miserable day in Vernon, it came to an end against the eventual state champion Rockwall. We're not going to talk about Rockwall much anymore today. No, because today we are here to celebrate that team, that season, and that era. Dalhart's decade of dominance, 1961 to 70, 91 wins, 19 losses, only one tie, 5 district titles, 3 by-district wins, 2 regional titles. And from 1963 to 67, according to Dave Campbell's Texas Football, out of 900 high schools playing football in the state of Texas, Dalhart had the best winning percentage for those 5 years. An unbelievable accomplishment. Woo! All right, I'm Kevin Lovell, but I probably have talked to everybody in this room many times over the last year. And if I don't know every face, I know every name. It's been my pleasure, along with fellow 1973 Dalhart High School graduate Joel Hogue. Joel, take one quick bow right here. We have organized this reunion, this celebration of our high school and our town, and our families and our way of life. So, we've got an incredible group of special guests, highlighted by Coach Stephen Young and the Dalhart Wolves. Where'd they go? They're serving. There they are. They'll be up here. The Wolves are actually serving. These guys have put the helmets on the table. Those are the game helmets. And are you guys waiting to serve? All right, it's coming shortly. It's coming shortly. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, a memorial to the 63 players that are no longer, and coaches that are no longer with us. And we're going to start with, we actually have a pastor in our ranks that was on the 63 team. He quarterbacked the Lobos to a 10-0 record as a sophomore in 61. He converted to defense. Doug Etheridge and company put him down they put him as a down lineman, a 132-pound down lineman. And then in the semis versus that team from down around Dallas, when Ronnie McClendon was injured, backup Pete Scardella was out, like the Texas A&M 12th man, he came into the game as a quarterback. And you know what? He did a wonderful job. His father, like my father, a Dalhart businessman, he found his calling as a minister in Kansas, Albuquerque, Wichita Falls, Texarkana, and now Amarillo, pastor at the Southwest Foursquare Church. He's married to former Dalhart High School twirler Sherry for 48 years. Let's all welcome Pastor Burton Mcelroy.
Well, hey guys, we are gathered together to remember and yes, celebrate the past and present and the future. All of us gray hairs in here, we need to remember there is a future. And if I had a red flag, I'd throw it at you, Coach, but I don't have one. Thanks to Kevin and Joel, we're here to enjoy the past and pass on our heritage. I want us to take a moment to remember those who have gone on before us to their greatest reward of heaven. Remember Superintendent Dean Skiles? How about Coach Sherwood? You know, remarkable man. And Jackie, thank you for being here with us today. Coach Artie Stewart went on back to his farming heritage after coaching, and a great individual. Jack Probst was on our coaching staff back in that year, and he went on to great success as a coach as well. Some of the players that are along with us, Carl McEnroe. Carl followed me in ministry. Actually, I wanted to follow him because he's a year older. So, and David Ryherd is a graduate and a player that we have memorized memorialize every year as the class of 65. Gerald Mitchell, Jimmy Chandler, Tommy Presley, and oh yes, that we got into a little interesting trying to figure out whether he was actually a player or not, but Bobby Stanley. I want us to remember Bobby because he died in Vietnam. I also want us to remember our teammates that are unable to be here today because they're ill, like Roy Weatherford and Pat Gallagher. So let's pause for a moment of silence for those. Thank you, Coach Etheridge, Coach Rickenberg, Jackie, and our beloved principal, Crandall Young, for being with us, and a special thanks and a welcome to our current head coach, Stephen Young. I remember when he was just an ornery little kid tugging at us when we was trying to referee. He said, he told me a minute ago he don't like referees, so I'm in trouble. All right, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather here today on this joyous occasion. Bless this happy reunion in which we ask that you impart your blessings upon each of us. And Lord, I implore that you bestow your blessing of healing on Roy and Pat this day. Thank you for guiding us through all the years of our existence and leading us to our destiny that you've set for us. May we have the courage to continue to follow no matter what. We want and need your approval for all that happens this day, and we thank you for this meal that we're about to partake of, and we ask that you bless those who've prepared it for us. In the mighty, powerful, and blessed name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you very much. Pardon, you need some help? Joel's there? Okay. Hey, I tell you what, it couldn't be complete, though. We have a Pledge of Allegiance. We're all going to stand. We're going to salute our flag with the Texas flag next to us. Hand over heart. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have Mary Rowell and Doc Rowell. Doc Rowell, the head coach of the Dalhart Wolves, 69 to 74. Mary Rowell, one of the greatest language arts teachers of all time. And then we have Phil Pirkle and his wife, Missy. Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Pirkle is the man, and I will talk some more about him, but I tell you what, we have a lot of wonderful sponsors, but United Supermarkets, of which he's affiliated, and then his tempo and what he meant to the 63 team, more than anybody else, and probably Coach Etheridge and maybe a couple of, but they're the reason that we're here. Phil, thank you. And then we've got, when I started this reunion a year ago, all the work and phone calls and all, I didn't know if this man was dead or alive. And Doug Etheridge is very much alive. He looks great, and we are so glad to have you. Bless your heart. And this is Richie Edwards. He was a high school football star with Doug, and Richie was born in Dalhart, Texas.
Yes.
Yes. And J.C. Rickenberg. J.C., we're so happy to have you and your wife, Dottie, and J.C. has a history of his own. We'll touch on that a little bit later. This all came together. This is a photocopy of the 1963 Dalhart Wolves playoff roster. I got a photocopy of this thing. It's all, it's not even a real one. I mean, this was like a copy of a copy. And that's what I started with a year ago, trying to find all these guys. And some knew others and others knew others. And email, phone calls, just an unbelievable project to get everybody together, and all well worth it. Of course, the teammates are good friends with each other, but they'll know 2 or 3. You don't know everybody. But we found these guys. Then it's a tribute to Joel Hogue, because we kind of worked in tandem, but at the same time we each had our own ideas. And my thought was, well, it's 50th anniversary. It's 1963 Wolves. What are we doing, man? We got to have this reunion. And Joel said, hold on. We had a whole 10 years at least, if not longer, of dominance, of excellence of Dalhart football. And you look, sure enough, you start in 61 and you go to 70, and you could still carry it a little further forward. Even the 60 team, Coach Etheridge was telling me, they wish they were part of it. Sorry, 4-5-1 didn't get it done, but they were still great Wolves. It had to start somewhere, had to end somewhere. And the 1970 team was a team every bit as good as any of the early 60s teams. And we all know about the officials that didn't know what they were doing in Phillips. But but where did this all really start? It started with my dad, who would take me to all. He was a Lovell Chevrolet owner. Joel's father was the publisher of the Dalhart Texan. So Joel would go with his dad to the football games in that era. My dad would take me to the football games. He had a friend named Joe Butler, and they'd been in a big Cadillac, and I'd have to sit in the back seat. Joe smoked cigars. My dad smoked cigarettes. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I would crack the window and stick my head up like a dog to go to Perryton or Spearman or somewhere. That's how much I love the Wolves, because I couldn't stand had to be fumigated after you got out of there. But that got me to the football game. So and then Joel and I broke my ankle in the 8th grade. Tommy Sherrill was my coach. He's in here somewhere. And I quit football. I was a sissy. I played golf. I played basketball. Joel lasted a year or two longer. He quit. 9th, 10th grade, Joel? Yeah. So, whenever. But we were still football geeks in the sense that we loved the Wolves. We loved the fight song, the school song. We loved purple and gold. We loved everything about Dalhart. And we just, in the 70s, when we were in college, we came home, we'd mow lawns, he'd work at the Texan or whatever, and we went at night. We started researching the Dalhart Texan archives, and we wrote the unofficial history of Dalhart High School football from starting in 1919 to 1975 when we did it. So we knew all the nuances, the teams and everything, and through the years we've just followed it. 10 years ago I wrote a letter to the high school principal and to the Chamber of Commerce and said, why don't you get the 40th reunion of the 1963 Wolves going? And didn't hear anything. Not that it wasn't, nobody was saying it wasn't important, but somebody's got to do the work. You got to organize this thing, and they had other issues, other agenda items. So now you flash forward another 9 years. Last year, as has been my calling, I come up to, I live in El Paso, but I come up to Amarillo. I usually see a Tech game, and I want to go see the Wolves play, usually a home game. Hopefully it's the same weekend. We're coming to Dalhart, Joel and I. I said, look, it's now or never. We're 1 year out, so we got in touch with the superintendent at that time, David Foote, Mayor Kevin Cadel, School Board President Jeff Lloyd, none of whom are in their present positions anymore. Just complicates matters. They're all big supporters and still here, but we had to educate a new generation of superintendent and principal and everything, but it made it all the more fun. We had Dionne Young, the coach's wife there, Peter Priestley, Dalhart businessman. John David was along, my good friend from Amarillo, and we put this thing together. We got the blessing. And after that, we got all kinds of support from a lot of people in the last year, of which we could not have done it. Among those supporters were the new superintendent, John Massey, and Principal Derek Hollingsworth. If you guys could stand up and say hi. These are new superintendent, new principal of Dalhart Schools. Thank you. And we have, and all the guys are going to get these, but if one of you or either one of you, Superintendent Massey, could you come up? All of the 63 teams going to get this beautiful, and we're going to present it tonight. So we got a couple of plaques this afternoon. But they have a nice trophy case at the high school, and you need to add one more, and it says 1963 Dalhart Wolves, #1 ranked, 13-1. Texas AA State semifinals. Put it in the trophy case. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, we had some great sponsors, as I talked about, and I'd like these guys to come up here and line up, and Madonna Hogue is going to help us out. And what we're going to give, the sponsors are going to get their plaques now for their support. All of the 63 team and the others that we're recognizing, the VIPs from the Decade of Dominance, all of them are going to get a Dalhart Wolves cap courtesy of Stephen Young and the Dalhart Wolves. And the cap, it's very important that you wear it certainly tonight at the game. We'll kind of get together, we'll sit as best we can together, and everybody will be recognized the purple cap. You're going to get that. You're going to get a supplement from the Dalhart Texan. Joel and I had worked so closely with Thomas Lott and Susan Clay and everybody associated with the Texan. And then, so the sponsors, if you would please come up here. These guys couldn't have done it without them, because I tell you what, it takes a lot of effort to put something like this together. So let's start with Peter Priestley, Dalhart Abstract. Peter, come on up right here. Way to go, Peter. Peter was the 1972 star running back. I grew up playing in his yard, and then of course I quit football, but he kept playing. Peter, line up down here. It'll be easier. We don't want anybody falling down. We're starting with you. And then we've got Kevin Cadel. Kevin, are you out there? Kevin was former mayor. Furniture Fashions of El Paso. Come on up, Kevin. Dyke Rogers could not be here today. Dyke, thank you for your support for Frontier Fuel. Representing Frontier Fuel is Troy Crawford. Troy, if you could come up, please. And then Jeff Lloyd. Jeff's the one collecting the money. Come on, Jeff. Jeff is First National Bank in Paradigm. And then Bill Cunningham, Dalhart Federal. I know I saw Bill earlier. There you are, right there. Come on over, Bill. Thank you very much, Bill. And another sponsor is Richard Pinner of Pinner Wire and Cable out of Garland. You wonder, well, what's a Garland? Well, Richard is 1963 Wolves, and he says, how can I help? I said, well, open your checkbook. So, Richard, come on up. Thank you very much. Hey, this guy, I've got to know everybody. You see him in the shorts. He's lived 6 months in Dallas-Fort Worth area and 6 months in Hawaii. Dun, 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 dun. And we have Kimberly Mccleskey Dryden, NCW Insurance. Kimberly, now notice her name before marriage, Mccleskey. Part of the Mccleskey clan. Her father was one of three brothers that were among the greatest Dalhart Wolves of all time. So, Kim, thank you so much for your help. And Phil Pirkle. Phil, you've got to go down for the moment. Or you hand it to Phil here. Andy, you want Andy Hewlett? Andy Hewlett of United Supermarkets in Dalhart, representing Phil Pirkle. And so now we got everybody up here. If we could, everybody's got their cap. You get your supplement on your way out. And let's give a great hand for all of the sponsors for the Decade of Dominance. All right, we also had a lot of volunteers, people in town. I just want to give these names as quickly as I can, but that does not mean that they spent a small amount of time. They spent a ton of time on this. Among them, Robin Scott, Nick Olson with the XIT Museum. Robin also has a newsletter in town, and they were instrumental. There's an exhibit, to my understanding. I haven't had a chance to get over there yet at the XIT Museum, so go by and say hi. We've had several things donated there. They've been great about organizing. Warren Slaughter, Joan Schubert, and Nicole from Secretel. They've been very much involved in this process. They're the ones who did all the trophies and a lot of the organization. Dalhart Band Boosters, Denise Baumert, Cindy McMurray, and Donna McGinnis. They were all instrumental as well. Now, save a little room, because tonight, everybody that's going to the roundtable discussion at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock at the high school, and that's going to be great football stories. We have the band boosters, and as it turns out, they're exclusively preparing food for our group. So is anybody in this room, and if there's but we really need to support them. It's only $8. It is goes straight to the band boosters. If you're not hungry, give a little donation. So that'll be like from 5 to 6, 6:15, maybe 6:30 at the high school. Band director Jim Pasley's been helpful. Stephen Young's wife Dion as well. Lynn Ballou made the banner, beautiful banner. Thanks to him. And then from the Texan again, Susan Hogue, Thomas Lott, and all the others to help put together what will be an award-winning special section. I guarantee it's just beautiful the way they laid it out. Then Don Cantrell's in the room. Anybody who hadn't seen it, Accent West out of Amarillo, and of course the High Plains, a wonderful, incredible spread on the Dalhart Wolves. And Don, where are you? You deserve a quick round of applause. Don Kent. Now, a word about this. We're giving one to each of our returning VIPs. We have some more, but they're going to be donations. We're going to put them at the front door when you're leaving. We kind of ask you to limit maybe one per family, and then we'll have some baskets or whatever if you could donate. And again, the money is going to the scholarship fund for Dalhart High School, and I'll touch more on that later. And then also, John Mark Ballou, if you haven't seen it, Amarillo paper today, just a spectacular article about the Dalhart Wolves, the Dalhart's Golden Wolves return for homecoming. Great picture of the coaches, Glenn Robertson's picture there. So, I've worked it hard because I am in the media, manager of a TV station in El Paso, I think I said, but I've, organized, I've got some of the TV stations from Amarillo coming up, shooting the game tonight, get on highlights. So, working with the media, getting you guys as much attention as you can possibly receive. Okay, also got, just so you know, this is Chris Swan and Brenda Swan, and they are from El Paso. They were the ones recording and getting everything organized for your DVDs. Thank you very much for coming up. Now, you got to remember, I'm their boss, so they had no choice. It's a long, lonely road from El Paso up here, right through Narragansett. And let's see, we have, where'd I put it? We had one volunteer that was just extraordinary. I'm pretty sure he's in the room. I hadn't had a chance to meet him, although we've corresponded a lot. And he is the 1968 Fighting Heart Award winner for the Dalhart Wolves. And he worked with Marcia Cunningham Sneed, Jan Johnson Chandler, and others. He came up with the idea for a great reception at 2 o'clock at St. Anthony's Catholic Church for all of the wives of the coaches and players and any of the women in this room. You're all welcome over there. You got to go over there at 2 o'clock. And so we have a Decade of Dominance Fighting Heart Award 68 reunion volunteer to Carl Woods. Carl, are you out there? Surely you are. Come on over, Carl. Carl didn't know he was getting this, but Carl has been so helpful at tracking down the trophies and getting the Fighting Heart Award trophies. Joel, would you give that to Carl, please? St. James Episcopal. Sorry. Episcopal. Yeah, I even wrote it down. St. James Episcopal. I apologize. Thanks a lot, Carl. Appreciate it. Okay, in organizing the reunion, we had to, and of course Joel and I have always looked at this, at the official records of Dalhart High School coaches. And I mean, this is it. I mean, we have the number 2 winner of all time, most wins, 41 wins, is Greg Sherwood. Bless his heart. May he rest in peace. Then we have a tie. We have a tie for the 3rd most wins in school history. Doug Etheridge, Doc Rowell, 38 wins. And then we have the all-time most wins ever by a Dalhart High School coach. He played for the Wolves. I believe he's the first head coach that we've ever had who played for the Wolves, or you maybe have to go way back to find another one. He was a 2-time All-District running back for Dalhart, graduated from Tech. He coached with Dalhart quarterback, another member of the Decade of Dominance, Steve Parr, who's coach at Palo Duro now. But he coached at Slayton, Plainview, Palo Duro. He's married to Dion. He has 2 sons, one in the Marines, one is a coach at Palo Duro. He's carried on many of the great Dalhart traditions. And since 2006, he's guided Dalhart to the playoffs every year, facing bigger enrollments, towns that have a lot more students than the Dalhart High School has. So, and the Wolves this year, they're more than doing their part. They're 2-0. So, this makes him the winningest coach in Dalhart High School history with 52 wins, 28 defeats. Looking for 53 tonight, boys. Let's all welcome, with a special trophy, a plaque for Stephen Young. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Say a word or two.
Say a word. Honored that I wasn't quite expecting. If you look around at all these young men. If you look at the helmet that is on your table, you'll notice that it's quite a bit of different helmet than what you guys played with. He said something about officials. If you've ever seen me coach or anything, I'm probably not the best fan of officials. My dad was an official, and I didn't even like him when he was an official. But, these two that have set this is a great honor. There's no more what I can say. What y'all did from 60 to 70, if we got here in 2006, and our goal was, and still is, to be a team of the decade also. And, we're not anywhere close to where you guys are, but we're going to try to finish it. And if I had anything to say, Ms. Sherwood and you guys in 1963, and then when Coach Sherwood was here, our offense is basically still run out of that 1963 stuff. Yeah. There's a young man that has passed away. His name is Ed Moore, and Ms. Sherwood would know who I'm talking about. That defense that he established way back then, that coach was Coach Sherwood, is the same defense that we run today.
Wow.
So I can't say enough. And then Steve Parr, who I consider my mentor, who just called me a minute ago and said he apologized that he could not be here. Who coaches at Paladura. He's got a game on Saturday, and he has taught me a lot, and he's a Dalhart boy. And if you can get people to come back to Dalhart that grew up in this era and the era that I grew up, it's a lot about Dalhart, and there's great people here. I want to thank you for this, and thank you for what all y'all done for me. Thank you very much.
Tell you what, those guys, Dalhart Wolves, they play defense and they run the ball. That's the way. All this spread offense, it's just not right. It doesn't look right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for the tradition of excellence that in the way you play football then and now. Coach Young, one other, I'd asked him and the Dalhart staff, they've had incredible success in all the sports. Among them, volleyball, they've been in the playoffs 7 straight years. They've had state qualifiers in cross country. Girls basketball, they've been in the playoffs since Stephen has been the athletic director. The boys basketball team has been 4 years in the playoffs. 1 year, they've been district champion once, and they were regional semifinalists, which is, they were Sweet 16 in the state in basketball 1 year. In track, softball, golf, tennis, powerlifting, Dalhart's had a great, great tradition of sports success and some other sports as well in individuals. So congratulations. And let's give a little hand real quick to all these Dalhart Wolves and everything they did, even serve the plates, huh? Woo. Okay, I'm going to be quick about this. I do talk fast, but because I love football history, got to give you a tiny bit of football history leading up to the 60s, and Joel's going to take over. Dalhart started playing football in 1919. In 1926, we beat Boise City 104-0. However, 4 years earlier in 1922, Clayton beat us 69-0. That's our worst loss in history. Dalhart in 1936, in the homecoming game, the homecoming queen kicked off. Literally kicked off. The other team, when they were good sports about it, they just fell on the ball. And that's the truth. If we're talking history in Dalhart, I know it's before our time, but in 1930 and 31, Dalhart had unbelievable football. Now, this was at the tail end of all the rains and the wheat crop, and the Panhandle was booming and Dalhart was booming. It was right after the stock market crash in '29 and the Great Depression, and right before the Dust Bowl. But in 30 and 31, players like Levi Reynolds and Charlie Mitchell, Dalhart finished the regular season unbeaten. They scored 310 points and gave up 0. And in the regional finals, which is as far as you could go in that era, they lost to Slayton 7-0. That 1930 team was the last district champion till Doug Etheridge and Company in 1961 won district. So That clap, that applause is as much for that 30 team as it is for the 1961 and the Decade of Dominance teams. Dalhart had a great team in 31 as well. In 1940, Coach R.M. Thompson, after 0-6 start, was literally, that's what the Texan reported, run out of town. And then in the World War II years, Dalhart was terrible. In 1941, I remember I used to play golf with this guy. A lot of people in this room know Odell Walker. Well, they didn't have a coach. Odell took over as the coach. They didn't have a bus. Odell's a funeral director. He loaned them the hearse. The team traveled in a hearse to the football games, en route to a 1-9 season. In 1949, Dalhart beat eventual state champion Littlefield. Great achievement. In the 1950s, John Nickel played for the Wolves, went on to all Southwest Conference frame at TCU. Then in 58 and 59, tide started to turn. Dalhart beat Stinnett with Donnie Anderson. Donnie Anderson, one of the great NFL players of all time, Texas Tech Red Raider. The Wolves beat him. And in 59 as well, Jack Mccleskey. This would have been the uncle, I guess, of Kim, because her dad was Joe Mack. I believe I got that right. He carried the ball 21 straight times in one drive. Scored a touchdown to beat Canyon. He had 56 rushes in the same game for the Dalhart Wolves. It still ranks among the top in the history of Texas high school football. You'll find him in the record book. Burr Henderson was the coach then, and he hired an assistant named Doug Etheridge. Doug Etheridge came over from a town where he'd started out, Phillips. I guess he learned a few things at Phillips. but he took that knowledge. And then for some reason, Phillips they weren't even part of our district in the early 60s, so we didn't get the pleasure of beating them in the early 60s. But this takes us to the 60s. It's my pleasure to introduce well, let me put it this way. In 1973, I was the District 1AA golf medalist runner-up. The district medalist champion of the 1963 Dalhart Wolves golf team. He beat me. I've never forgiven him, Joel Hope.
I honestly do not know how that happened. There were at least 2 or 3 other guys that were better than me, but somehow it all came together. Listen, Kevin has given me 5 minutes to give you the history of the 1960s, so I have to move quickly, okay?
Move closer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now? Okay. All right. I will tell you, I graduated from Texas Tech in the mid-'70s with a degree in history, but I never envisioned that my area of expertise would be in Dalhart High School football. But that's what it has turned out to be, particularly when you consider that the only time I got onto the football field in high school was as a part of Jack King's marching band. So I know, I don't mean to offend anybody in here. I know we've got teachers in here, and I was a teacher myself, but as they say, those who can do, those who can't teach. So there I was. But anyway, I've only got about 4 minutes to get this all in. So I thought about how can I do this very succinctly, and I thought, well, you can look at this by the numbers. And when you look at the numbers, you find that Dalhart played 111 football games in the 1960s, which includes the 1970 season. They won 91 of those games. They lost 19, and they tied 1. So on average, they won 9 games and lost 2 games every year for a decade. And that's a pretty incredible achievement. If you look at it another way, if you look at it based on the letters and the words that certain of those letters form, then you get a little different perspective when you think of the words Denver City, Rockwall, Phillips, and Iowa Park. And I can see your heads nodding out there. You know what I'm talking about. Those were the teams. Those were the teams that defined the Dalhart Wolves. Sometimes they reflected great success and achievement because of a terrific victory won. Other times they reflected the fact that just getting to the point of being able to play those teams was reflective of a tremendous achievement. We're going to show you some highlights here in just a little bit, but this all got kind of started with the 1961 season. Dalhart faced the Denver City Mustangs. Denver City was the #1 ranked team in the state. They had won the state championship in 1960. They were possessors of a 26-game winning streak when Dalhart played them in the regional round of the playoffs. No one gave Dalhart a chance, but somehow, some way, the Wolves hung with the Mustangs during the first half of that game. Dalhart was behind 8-7 at the end of the half, and then the opening kickoff of the third quarter, Denver City was clearly going to take control of the game. They had an outstanding running back named Pat Hubbard who returned a kickoff 72 yards. And Chester Bird, is Chester in the audience with us? I don't know if he made it or not. Chester Bird ran him out, down on the sidelines, knocked him out of bounds at the 21-yard line, which was a good thing because ultimately Dalhart rose up with a tremendous goal line stand, stopped them on the 1-yard line. One play later, they moved it out to the 3-yard line, and then Tommy Ledbetter broke free on a 97-yard touchdown run that completely opened the game wide up. Tommy, you want to stand up for us, please? And you're going to see that play replayed here in fairly short order. So Dalhart went on to win that game 29-8. The following season, those two teams met again in the regional round of the playoffs. But first, I should add, does anybody remember what our band played at the end of that game? The old gray mare, she ain't what she used to be, right? Then in 1962, we faced them again, and this time it was another terrific battle. But it came down toward the end of the game. Dalhart set up for a 45-yard field goal to try to take the lead at the end of the game. Dwight Clifton, who had a terrific leg. This is back in the old days when you just kicked head on. There was none of this soccer-style stuff they do today. He kicked the field goal. It sails up in the stands. I was in the 2nd grade at the time, and I still have this vision in my mind, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but there were 2 officials on the field, one that went like this and the other one that went like this. They conferred and determined that the field goal was no good, that it was just wide to the left. I did not speak to these gentlemen. Kevin tells me he spoke to Bill Cunningham and to Dwight Clifton, the holder and the kicker, and it was wide left. So we lost that game 23-21, and their band played Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? That was Denver City. We've already agreed we're not going to talk about Rockwall. We're going to talk about the 13-0 season leading up to the Rockwall game. That leads us to Phillips. They moved into our district in 1964. We played Phillips 7 times during this time frame we're talking about and won 2 games. They always stood in our way in terms of being able to get into the playoffs. They only took 1 team back in those days. The toughest game I think I have ever seen or experienced, and if you read the special section and some of the stories that Kevin and I wrote for that special section, that 1970 game between Dalhart and Phillips, Doc Rowell will well remember that, Jack Boston will well remember that, was the cruelest loss of all. When